Everyone, good morning, everyone. Welcome after a weekend. It's Monday. We're back into the rituals. Let's go. Another week of narrating the war for our brothers. And today, I would like to start by an insight I had this weekend. And it came looking at me, and it came looking at, or hearing the story of a friend who's in New York. He was talking about his girlfriend, and there's been going back and forth on and off for the past couple of years, and they've been separated now for half a year. And when I asked him about what it was, he said, well, yeah, she was very judgmental, she's very judging of me, and I had to break free of it. And I instantly, and I had to be very careful not to give unsolicited advice, but I instantly recall the conversation that we had earlier before, where you said, usually if you feel judged by someone, you feel judgment, usually you have judgments of them also. And that instantly took me back to my own experience, where I feel a very strong reaction to people judging me for whatever. So they judge me, and I instantly have a very negative reaction to it. And then I remember having my Meran, who I lived with in Malaga, and he said to me, well, yeah, but you're very judgmental of people judging you. And it seems so simple, but to me it was a revelation that I've been judging the people judging me, And to me, it's a great insight to see that if you feel judged by someone, you probably have judgments of them. If nothing else, you probably judge them for judging you. And so the next step of that is, if thinking about my friend, also thinking about me, if you want to save that relationship, I was not aware of the judgments I had of those people. I would look at how they were judging me and how I should react to that, which means I either walk away from it, or I address it, or I blame them for it, or I try to educate them, whatever. Mm-hmm. When the solution really, if you want to save that relationship, is not in addressing their judgment of me, but in addressing my judgments of them. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this 3 days ago, I think, on a podcast. But how can I address my judgments of them? Because I'm the prisoner of my own judgments. How do I get rid of them? And the way to do it, you said, correct me if I'm wrong, is to draw a boundary and say, this is the boundary, and I will not go beyond the boundary, which means I will not allow from myself that I treat you in a certain way. I will stop allowing myself to continue to judge you. So I'm going to show up in a different way. And in the same breath, that means if the boundary is here, I'm not going to cross it. You don't cross it either. But that's the second step in the wake of me showing up a certain way.
Well, we're talking about all of this, and it's pretty conceptual, but it's very clearly drawn out in the honor window process. The wisdom that we're talking about here comes from the honor window. So, and that's what I'm going to reference as I even speak about it. But, drawing a boundary to not judge the other is, that can be a part of it. But, to bring down, you don't want to just stop yourself from judging them, because what does that mean? What does that mean, stop yourself from judging them? Don't speak your judgments of them. Don't feel your judgments of them. That's not so clear as far as the instruction. Mm-hmm. What I would do is look to uncover what are my hidden judgments, because the judgments are oftentimes invisible. Mm-hmm. Some of them might be clear and verbal, but there might be a bunch there that are just, they're like neurologically there. They're like, a defense mechanism. So draw out and see what this invisible wall is, and then that gives you a map to be able to bring down the wall of judgment, to restore honor in its place, and self-respect and respect of the other in its place. Mm-hmm. So I think what you're talking about is self-respect, and respect of the other. Basically, if not only if I'm feeling judged by you, am I most likely judging you? But if I feel you're disrespecting me, most likely you feel disrespected by me. And so the first step to restore, well, I'm not going to say the first step, but one way to restore, to have the other person respect you more, is first to stop disrespecting them and make a barrier for yourself. Mm-hmm. This is how I'm not going to behave, because they feel disrespected by it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then at the same time, I'm also going to enforce boundaries of them not disrespecting me. And it's it may be a boundary that's invisible as well. But, a lot of our judgments come from a number of different things. One, if I feel you're disrespecting me or violating me in some way, I might not actually tell you to stop. I might not have a boundary there. So I might erect an invisible boundary of a judgment. Hans is like this. He's always kind of violating my space or whatever in this way. And then you can feel I'm judging you, and it just escalates. Whereas I could say, I don't like it when you do this, or I feel disrespected when you behave like this, something like this. So, judgments are often it's a less powerful way of defending your boundaries.
It's in a way, it's non-inclusive. It's not communicated to the other.
Yes.
At least not verbally or...
Doesn't give them a chance to win.
Right.
Doesn't give the relationship a chance to win.
It's a very selfish way to
Well, often it's about you. We learn this coping mechanism oftentimes when we're children, and we're in an environment where we don't feel we can speak our judgments. Right. I mean, speak it to our parents who might end up on the street.
Right.
So on and so forth. So we learn it as a coping mechanism.
It's a defense mechanism. Like what I learned in my history when relationships go sour, to me the judgments were a way for me to cope with the pain of that relationship going sour. Like it was so great and it's going bad. I can't deal with it, so I'm gonna judge the other.
Yes.
So I have an explanation. So it's outside of me.
Yeah, some of the pain is the guilt, is the realizing your role in making it go south. But if you can just judge the other, you can feel righteous about it going south. It's their fault, it's not mine. So it doesn't eliminate all the pain, but it does feel less painful and a bit more powerful to at least be like, they did it, they're wrong.
But that's not going to solve the relationship. If you really want to solve the relationship, to me, the first step is that becoming aware, like you do in the honor window, the first quadrant, or is the second, I don't know. But to become really aware of your own judgments towards the other, like the practical way for me is this: I feel judged. Oh, now I know. If I feel judged, I probably have judgments of them. Now I have to do the work. Now instead of addressing that, I'm going to go do the work and become aware of my own judgments. Like,
why aren't you going to address that with them?
No, I'm not going to address their judgments of me.
Why not?
Because, it seems very close to blame. It seems...
it's generally going to be completely ineffective.
Yeah.
Right? Because until anything that you try to do to make the relationship better, while they're feeling judged by you, you have no authority.
Right.
They do not feel that you're holding them in their heart. In fact, it just feels like a violation. The fact that you don't feel them at all,
right?
Yet you're trying to correct them in some way,
right?
It's
like
completely a violation of authority.
Gottman from the Gottman Institute has a funny, well, the way he tells it is funny, is that you see a couple and they're blaming each other back and forth, and he says, what do we expect, that the other is going to say all of a sudden, well, thank you for pointing out what an asshole I was, I didn't see it, well, thank you, just, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. The way you say it is, as long as they feel judged, they don't trust they don't take you as an authority.
Yes.
So,
and there's a lot of nuance to this, which is why the whole honor window process is so powerful, and there's so much insight and wisdom in that process. But it's not enough to say, okay, well, I understand them, or I'm not judging them anymore. Yeah. Like, I'm not judging it. It's not a matter of if you have convinced yourself that you're not judging them anymore. Yes. Or that you believe that, or that you believe you understand them, you get them. The thing that matters is, do they still feel judged by you? And there's an even higher standard is, do they feel honored by you? Which is, that's getting into the realm of being able to make miracles happen.
I talk, when you talk with people and you see this discussion, I've had it, you say, you point out the judgment. You say, you're judging me, or you're judging the other person. And then the reaction often is, no, I'm not judging. As if it's not a judgment when you say it's not judging, And it doesn't matter, as if it's a ontological discussion about what is. No, what's important is, does the other person feel judged by you?
Yes.
And so for me, the learning is this, become very aware of my own judgments. That's why the honor window is good. You write it down. When I saw that I was judging the people who were judging me, I'm like, what?
Yes.
That's so clearly now.
Yes.
Like, I am judging them. And with that, becoming aware, now I have the tool to start suspending it, to start suspending that judgment. And it's not just knowing it, but now I know, now I know where to work. Because what I realize is, when I deal with my own judgments, here, my judgments of them, in terms of border control, of trying to suspend it, becoming aware, all of that, that is the way, for me, that's the first step into solving that relationship, is becoming aware and then showing up in a different way. Me showing up a different way. That's both the work and the grace of that, because I know now that I can restore a relationship by myself, just by the way I show up, the way I start drawing a boundary, the way I stop myself from judging them. That's the solution, and not dealing with their judgments of me. That's, I feel, is the power of that.
Yes. Well, also underlying the judgments is desire. Desire that you've not felt that you could speak, just like you didn't feel that you could defend your boundaries. Maybe you wanted more love from your mother, for example, and she didn't give it, and you couldn't say that you wanted it, but you just started judging her as mean or cold or whatever, and the judgments escalate from there. But underneath most of our judgments, there's an unspoken desire / need that's not being met. And so if we can, I titled this little Facebook Live here that your power is buried underneath your judgments. And, we talk about tezao all the time, but like the real feeling of what my real desire is, if I can feel that, if I can speak that, if I can act on that, I have real power to lead myself from within and to lead others, because it feels genuine. I'm really coming from my desire.
So instead of bringing, or try to grapple with your judgments of them and bringing them in a way that would be accepted, what you're saying is, underneath the judgment, is also a desire. And if you can instead of coming from the judgment, try to communicate that. If you can come from that desire and express that, you have a lot more chance of of the other accepting that, of the other coming along with you, you have a lot more power in addressing that and bringing that to the world instead of the judgment.
And even just in general, starting to speak your desire, rather than judging in the first place, just as a way of operating in the world. You do work with guys who, they're trying to get better with women and improve their relations, attract women, and so on and so forth. A lot of times what's completely buried is their self-expression, even their feeling of their desire. And they may be even judging themselves for their desire. The judgment thing is so ubiquitous. It's just like all over the place. And it's, underneath that is really so much power. The anger, right? From like feeling your boundaries being crossed, and then the which is like an impetus to stand up for yourself, that gets buried under judgment. The desire of what you really desire, that gets buried under judgment. And the honor that could be present, which is another great, powerful force, also gets suppressed and buried under the judgment walls. It's like there's so much authentic, beautiful power there that can be accessed. But with all of the layers of judgments against this person, that person, this person, mother, father, humanity, myself, whatever, it's a process that as the more that you do it, the more you grow in your authentic power.
Let me, I want to integrate, mainly for me, it may sound conceptual, but it's very practical for me now, is this: when I feel judged by someone else, I most probably have judgments of them myself. And the way to solve that tension, that discord, is not in addressing their judgments of me by going away, by yelling out, by trying to change them, but in addressing my judgments of them. And great ways of addressing that is one, is become very aware of the judgment I have of him. And this is where, for example, the honor window is very nice in the quadrants. You start seeing your own judgment. You go, oh, And what I like now, and this is new, is like I could become aware of my judgments and then try to bring that to people. But what I really like is underneath every judgment is a almost parallel, is a desire.
Yes.
And if I come from that place, I get, or I use my judgment as a window to start seeing my desires, what's really underneath that, If I have that desire and I can start speaking it, I can start articulating it, that's how I break free from the prison of my own judgments. That's how I can break free, and I can see the other way more acceptant of that when you come with your judgment, or instead of like trying to come with your judgment, when you come with your desire instead of coming with your judgments of them.
Yes.
So that's how I see very powerful, practical way forward.
We've been talking about like no tolerating for the past few weeks. This is a great way to deal with that in a powerful way, is really connect to your desire under there. If you're tolerating let's say some behavior of someone else, you're just sitting there kind of silently like judging them and suffering and not speaking your desire, not acting from your desire. But like what if you just came from your desire? Like what if judgment was not an option and you just act powerfully around what you want? And if you can't create a win-win with them, then you go somewhere else, or you create it with someone else. Or
imagine all these men. Well, I don't have to imagine. I hear the stories. These men that are in Corona times in the same space with their wife, with their children. I was talking to a guy in Asia, and I was like, "How is it with your wife?" And he has a daughter also, and he says, "I'm becoming very good at tolerating the women in my life." And I'm like, "Wow, tolerating," because we don't see the other way. And I really like, this is for me, but I'm sure it's for the guys too. It's like when you feel judged, you're judging them, and the solution is not in addressing their judgment, but your own judgment.
And probably what he feels proud about is that before he would just like lash out in judgment back at them, maybe fighting, bitching, moaning, complaining, whatever. And now he's keeping his mouth shut, but he's still got the judgments.
Right.
He's still suffering. You know, maybe it's not causing as many problems because he's containing it more. But a whole next level is...
So not tolerating, when guys hear this first, is, and they think it's about saying, stop, not that anymore. And it is that. But the key of not tolerating, when we say don't tolerate anything, I'm not tolerating that. When we say don't tolerate anything, it means you don't tolerate yourself to continue to have judgments of them as well. You don't tolerate that. It's not tolerating. You know, no compromise, no tolerating, no limits. And there's a way more powerful way to show up by addressing your own judgments and see the parallel with desire and come with that, so you can create something that's a win-win for everyone involved.
Hey, you could say not tolerating suffering.
Not tolerating suffering. Yeah. If
Buddhists say life is about suffering. But what if it's not? You know, does it have to be?
you can have a win-win, depending on how many people you have in your family. So this is for all the people who are feeling the cabin fever, you know, feeling the judgment. It's very powerful to me to see that, you know, that the solution is seeing my own judgments, addressing them, coming from desire, and it only needs you to change that relationship around. That to me is such a satisfying insight and practice.
And it's one thing to have the insight, and it's another thing to practice it.
Yes, come and practice with us.
The honor window is deep, my friends. And powerful.
See you tomorrow.